Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Glenn. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to USM for outfitting this gorgeous theater and to Design Miami for hosting us. I'm very grateful to be joined by these wonderful panelists today who've come together to share their insights on the value of collaborations between designers and brands. Each of the individuals on this stage brings unique experience and perspective to this conversation. We'll do a quick intro for those of you who are not already familiar. Craig Robbins, to the far left, is an entrepreneur, real estate developer, and art collector based in Miami. He's also the co-founder of Design Miami, without whom none of us would be sitting here, so thank you, Craig. He is also the CEO and president of the real estate development company Dacra, through which he focuses on developing creative communities that integrate art, design, and architecture to enrich urban life. He is also the mind behind the Miami Design District, a unique cultural and commercial destination that exemplifies this approach. The 18-square block neighborhood incorporates the work of emerging and established architects and designers, site-specific public art, outstanding culinary experiences, and stores by the world's most significant luxury brands. The Miami Design District is also, notably, the first LEED certified gold-built version 4 neighborhood in the world. Thank you for being here, Craig. David Kohler, to my immediate left, chairs the Kohler Company's Board of Directors and Executive Committee, and also serves as the company's Chief Executive Officer, a role that includes responsibility for the 3 business groups of Kohler Co., kitchen and bath, energy, and hospitality, as well as all enterprise functions. He also champions the importance of designer collaboration to bring further dynamism to the engineering and developmental innovations for which Kohler is so renowned. In partnering with outstanding designers, including the likes of Dr. Samuel Ross, the company honors distinctive design voices while centering creativity to introduce Kohler's milestone developments. This year, the company also celebrates a remarkable 150-year anniversary, so congratulations. As part of the anniversary celebrations, as you can see from the incredibly striking presentation just a few steps from this theater, Kohler has partnered with Samuel Ross to create a powerful storytelling moment that introduces the brand's latest innovations, including new water flow capabilities and a new material, Neolast, that allows for expanded colorways. Thank you for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Samuel Ross is an award-winning British multi-hyphenate talent who has risen to fame over the past few years on the strength of his material-intensive streetwear line, A Cold Wall, and his firm SRA, which launched at the Serpentine to mark his reception of the 2019 Hublot Design Prize. His multidisciplinary practice mines the cross-sections of socio-geographic relationships. His points of study include movement of the diaspora, double consciousness, and applications of industrial production techniques and postmodern color theory through works that affect public space, landscape, and environment that we intersect with daily. In Samuel's latest collaborations, both with Kohler and the Miami Design District, he has brought his unique perspective to the table to create striking objects that elevate the everyday. Thank you for being here. So to kick things off, David, I'd love to start with you. First off, in honor of the anniversary, you've launched a really wonderful campaign, Come All Creators. I was hoping you could tell us a bit about that campaign.
Thank you, Anna, and welcome everyone. It's an honor for us to be here. This is our 150th anniversary as a company, and in celebration of that, we created a theme around Come All Creators because we want to celebrate all the amazing creative talents around the world that have been instrumental in building our company over the years. Recent people like Samuel and Daniel Arsham, but all the designers and all the collaborators that have worked with us, all of the craftsmen, the builders that have worked with us, and the developers around the world that have showcased our products. So it's been an incredible year of celebration and seeing all of these collaborators that we've worked with come together in a community and celebrate. So it's pretty amazing the talent that's out there in the world today and the prior generations that helped bring us here today. So we're honored to be here.
In looking at the company's success to date, where do you think collaborations with artists and designers fit in?
You know, if you look at the core essence of, I think, why our company's been successful, it's because we're a left brain, right brain organization. We're very disciplined and rigorous and critical in how we think about business, but we're also very creative, imaginative, and fanciful in how we take daring, courageous risks to pioneer new countries, new products, new innovation, new technology. So that entrepreneurial spirit fueled with disciplined management is really how we've been successful. And that certainly has pushed us over the years to collaborate with artists in support of the arts, and also work with designers and artists over the years to actually create products for commercial sale. And our relationship with Samuel is certainly an example of that. But we've always had a deep passion for the arts as kind of part of our ethos and focus on design and creativity.
And how do you choose the designers with whom you collaborate?
Well, we choose them very carefully. First of all, we want a great human being. But in all seriousness, we are really looking for amazing people that are at the forefront of their craft. But we don't typically want to work with just an artist or just a designer. It's finding those amazing people that have a combination of a background in art and design that really want to go deep in their thinking and in the craft, not only in the design itself and form and function, but also in the process and the material of how it's being built. And Samuel's a perfect example of that kind of deep critical thinking in all the work he does. And he creates objects and designs that pushes the boundary. We would never have gotten to where we got with just ourselves without his push on the boundary of material and form and function. So it's a great example of what's possible in pushing the boundaries of thinking.
And why do you think Samuel was the right designer for these specific innovations?
Because if you look at his work, and he's got a growing and growing body of work that's known now globally, you can see an intensity there, an energy there, and a depth of creativity there that is extremely unique. He thinks for months, if not years, on any one of these developments and goes back to it and works it. And only in doing that can you get something that really is an explosion of creativity that heightens all of the emotions in color and form and function. And that's why I think he's rising to such a level of global notoriety that you see today.
The company is not new to collaborations of this nature. As we mentioned, you've worked with the likes of Daniel Arsham, Nada Debs, other outstanding creatives over the years. What was distinct about the collaborative process itself with Samuel?
Well, I think it also speaks to the quality of person, and we want to work with people that are passionate about the craft. It's not just about the end product. It's about the process, the collaboration, and really understanding. And Samuel is amazing in working with all of our team, from the factory floor to the design team to the engineering team, and really understanding the challenges and the opportunity and pushing with them. And having that type of person that is truly collaborative and enjoys the process, that's what we love. Because at the end of the day, we love the creative process more than anything else we do. There's a lot of other things we have to do, but we love the creative process, and we want to work with people that love the creative process as well.
Absolutely. And Samuel, from your perspective, can you tell us a bit about what it was like to work with Kohler and what appealed to you about the project from the get-go?
Well, I think the first thing which comes to mind is that, Kohler represents a unique form of production and liberty within the arts when it comes down to being able to not just generate ideas, but to physically be able to craft and produce them domestically. So the notion of being able to re-enter into a living forum of engineering, which is of course in the the HQ itself, in which we did several visits over the past year and a half, is really valuable. And it's almost as though it's a treasure trove. It's almost as though you're going back and doing some type of postgrad degree, and you're able to explore and ideate with a sense of freedom, but there's also the understanding and rationale that you're working with experts, and all of the pendulum swing of lucid ideas which come about in those conversations are fundamentally underpinned by a century and a half of prowess and expertise, and that's enabled this lateral way of thinking, where, for example, we can put forward such a abstract form, not by wanting to, from the outset, begin wanting to create something disruptive or unique, but simply by going through the passage of traditional design and knowing where to reorient on certain aspects of that. So, for example, practically, the first pitch and proposal to David Kohler and the wider team, there was no 3D file, there was no Rhino file, there was no render. They were all hand drawings, 250 hand drawings in chalk, in ink. There were small clay sculptures, there were pencil drawings, and it's that level of respect of the traditional way of ideating and trusting the mechanisms of the mind and the hand to produce newness. And when you're working with a innovation and heritage-based company such as Kohler, that's completely understood, that way of lateral thinking.
And can you tell us a bit more specifically about your new work for Kohler? I mean, I understand that the new work combines Kohler's newest material and its original material, which I think is super interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think I kind of first have to start with the fact that, David and I were speaking about this yesterday, and this has been a rhetoric which has occurred over the past year and a half, is that, first and foremost, Kohler moves water safely through sanitary solutions from point A to point B, nationally and globally. So my first prospect was really thinking about the relationship in which water is delivered through a vessel of sorts, and how that has historically, been able to advance amicable solutions for people to live amongst. So from the get-go, although we knew the end result was to a degree to produce a product which would be partly commercially accessible and available, it was more so about the movement of water and the underpinning democratic values associated to moving water, and of course the historic relationship to what water has meant in terms of the advent of civilization and where it could potentially take us. The second, capillary of thought was understanding that the expectation of the tap and the faucet is so deeply ingrained and etched within the way in which we move throughout society and modernity, and historically how it's been documented. We wanted to find a way to not reinvent what already exists, but try to find some space based off the opportunity to actually contribute towards that particular field of design, hence why the form in its actual nature is quite lucid and quite gestural. We weren't interested in taking a faucet and shifting the color slightly, or working with a mixed alloy and coating that. We wanted to focus on innovation, which is why the material base is new material IP, which we're potentially looking at patenting. It's a recycled resin epoxy, which has enabled this shape and form to come about. So on one side you have this beautiful expressive shape and form, and on the other side you have true material development being accessible to the public.
Your practice is consistently marked by striking use of color and materiality. So what was it like working with the brand at the forefront of new material and color capabilities in this case?
It feels so, how can I put this, freeing. It feels freeing to be able to almost, at times, enter more so like a childlike state, and just to play and to question and to really consider, with all of the good cerebral stuff that we all love, really consider what are the first engagements you want someone to have with an object. Again, I always use this reference, but I'll use it again because it sounds great and it's relevant. The first time my dad took me to see a Henry Moore piece in Kensington Gardens, and it was, I was probably like 12 years old, and it was who, what, when, why, how, where. all of these more essential inquiries come about. But before that, it's making sure that there's a democratic and accessible and expressive and optimistic solicitation of that through color and through form. And then the questioning can follow, and then the material inquiries can follow. But it's first about unlocking expression and optimism for the populace.
Yeah, that's lovely. And how did your design thinking extend into the presentation at the fair this year?
I think there's always a joy in being able to propagate space through object. And it's impossible to not consider temperature and physical temperature and light temperature and the octaves of sound and architecture and the impact of scale and the collision of materials. That is as pertinent and as critical as the article or the object itself. And ensuring that there is some type of revelation for environment to be able to unlock some of the questioning and inquiries, almost breadcrumbing for experience, really went into the cadence and the aesthetics of the space and the material choice of the space. And as you can see, there's this interesting tension of the finishing of the hand, the form of what appears to be mineral, stone, and rock, meeting the collision of contemporary architecture with a little bit more of a Broodness lens coming into play with some of the X-frames and whatnot. And it's always about boiling space down to this relationship to craft and this relationship to technology, which is also why the orange was chosen. You think of orange, you think of industrial space, you think of the Metropolis Forum, but you also think of a color which is not necessarily that frequent across the natural palette. And there's this awareness which is unlocked or solicited with the color, regardless of scale.
I'll wait a moment.
This is good ephemera. This is great.
Samuel, you also recently unveiled a special new project in the Miami Design District. Can you tell us a bit about the new benches that you've designed for the neighborhood?
Of course, I'm elated. You can see me smiling to talk about this also. I think there's a couple of ideas and thoughts which come to mind. Firstly, Craig and I have gone back and forth for the past year on do we call them benches or functional sculptures? And we're mediating between the two. There's this joy that the design district genuinely has created and solicits and actually represents through its values and the feeling that you have within the space. And I've enjoyed the district firstly as a fan for many years. It's always been top of my list to visit, to understand what's happening within the zeitgeist within Miami and also across this country. So being able to open a report, gradually with Craig, really supporting the early stages of my career within the arch and furniture has now been a joy to be able to, perhaps contribute to the environment and landscape. And first, again, thinking about the inquiries you want people to be able to express and bring forward when they see some of those anamorphic reductive forms, then being able to see the impact of British sculpture through those forms, but also see the optimism of Miami through those forms and how they vignette and cut through the silhouette of the local elevations. It's an absolute joy, and I could talk for too long, but I'm sure Craig has some thoughts on this as well.
Well, Craig, what drew you to Samuel for this particular project?
So generally, the design district, by the way, when Richard Nixon was president, he had a house in Key Biscayne, and so he required that none of the planes flew south, and so that's why this is still the Federal Aviation route. Sorry, that wasn't the question you asked, though, right? Generally, the design district is equally a place for creativity as it is for businesses. And that's kind of our philosophy, that art, architecture, and design can give a powerful sense of place and give people a special connection. And then there are different kinds of commissions that we do. Some are permanent, some are temporary, and temporary could be for a year, 6 months, 5 years. Permanent is long-term, meaning indefinitely.
most of the permanent installations are generated first from me being a collector. So a few years ago, I don't remember how long ago, I bought a work of Samuel. And what I usually do is if I see a work by a designer or an artist that I like, I buy it. And my goal is to find people that I want to keep collecting. It's not to buy one thing, but to follow a career and be inspired. But you don't really know if you want to do that until you get one and you put it in your house or your office or a place where you can live with it and see it. Well, anyway, after having bought 3 incredible works by Samuel at Design Miami, I had no choice, but I said, all right, we need to come up with a permanent commission. And, you know, a lot of times things that are functional like benches aren't taken seriously. And if you look at the design district, like a lot of things that normally we find are the most boring are actually the more interesting parts of the neighborhood, like our parking garages. Normally the ugliest thing you see in any development is the parking garage, but all of those became platforms for serious artistic expressions. John Baldessari did a facade. Terry Riley curated the museum garage with 5 other contributors. Anyway, it was a perfect solution. We wanted to do a really cool bench that would be impactful, that when people looked at it, they would say, oh, the design district is a special place. And Samuel was the perfect choice.
In the way that the district so beautifully fuses art, architecture, design, commerce, culture, I wonder, from your perspective, how do you see the value for all of the stakeholders involved, for the commercial entities, for the designer, artists, and also for the general public who gets to enjoy the neighborhood?
Well, our goal basically was to make this place that would give a special sense of connectivity. So it started more like there were some furniture showrooms there, but with Art Basel. We founded Design Miami in the design district. In fact, David Adje, who's here today with his wife Ashley, was one of our Designer of the Year winners several years ago. And we've had this history of integrating then design in art and architecture into the neighborhood. And what that does is it gives it a sense of place, but there's an extra piece to it. Then these global fashion brands, they all started to want to be in the design district, and they didn't want to do what they normally do because it wasn't a normal place. It wasn't like the typical mall or the typical luxury street. It was different. And so they all started to express themselves differently. And what's key for us is to keep doubling down. Not just, yes, John Baldessari did an incredible installation. We've got Buckminster Fuller's Fly's Eye Dome. But we also have to keep inventing and doing new things. And that could be activations. It could be cultural content. We do a lot of things like that. And then it's doing like special projects like incorporating these benches in the neighborhood.
And one of the things I personally love so much about the design district, and one of the reasons it's always been such a privilege to be able to contribute to some of the projects there, is not only are you bringing together world-class creatives and renowned luxury entities, but you're also bringing the kind of broader community in as well, and really nurturing kind of access to culture in this one very special place. Can you tell us a bit about kind of how you frame that broader community access in the neighborhood?
Well, what I always say is, like, if you have a friend who's coming to Miami, you don't say, oh, you got to go shop in the design district. You say, you've got to go see the design district. So, people talk about experiences, but what we want to do is we want to make it a place that people can connect to in a deep way. And even though there's a lot of luxury there, there's a lot of other stuff. It's an outdoor museum of art, architecture, and design. You've got 2 museums in the neighborhood, both are which are free to the public. It's got, in an urban part of Miami, by far the cheapest parking. But that's because we want it to be accessible. We want like everybody to feel comfortable. And if they're coming to do a selfie or to get an ice cream or a coffee, or they're going to buy a Birkin bag, it doesn't matter to us. We just want people that are of like mind and that want to share that experience to come to the neighborhood. And so we do it in a lot of different ways. We do a lot of concerts with Emilio Estefan. He generously produces them with us. They're always free to the public. There's never like a ticketing thing if it's our event. And we do lots of other activations like that through the year. We do a great car show. Most of these like super exclusive car shows, you got to buy money to get in. The streets of the design district have red carpets and everyone can go walk around and see the cars.
Yeah, that's great. And Samuel, I wonder, how do you characterize the mutual benefits of these sort of commercial and creative collaborations, and how do these collaborations fit into your own sort of larger aims as a creative?
Well, I think there's something really special about understanding the tension point between the commercial and creative practice is where the requisite of newness is born. You know, the idea of wanting to scale an idea and project it and ensure that idea is seen and experienced and bring some type of empathy or resonance with others requires there to be a commercial vehicle underpinning that. Whether that's in the form of a fashion brand, such as, you know, my first company at Cold Wall, or whether it's in the form of SRA, our industrial studio, or working closely with these two gentlemen on incredible projects and commissions. It's not just about creativity for the self and keeping that as a private practice. It's finding ways to share your perspective, your expression, your origin story, and your cadences with the world. And if you can find a way to build a proficient life from that and then flower additional opportunities for others who you believe also have those unique prospects and their own stories, that's where the magic of, you know, art and commerce really comes together. It's more about the expanding of creativity versus creativity for the self. So from day one, the value of the LLC or the limited company has always been equal to the value of a sense of expression and elation through the arts.
And David, I wonder for you, how do you also characterize the mutual benefits from your perspective for all involved?
I think there's incredible benefit when brands get behind great artists and designers because they amplify their work and provide access to these industrial processes and materials that can also expand their creative thinking and just give them the resources to truly be free to create, but also, as Samuel said, not just to create beautiful, unique, limited objects, but also then to push the boundaries and to make those more accessible to broader populations. So I do think these brand platforms that amplify the creativity really serve a great, you know, service to the world and to consumers and those that really care about great design in the work we do.
As a follow-up, I have a question for all of you, but maybe we start, David, with you. How do you think that harnessing a brand's place in society can enrich the future of design more broadly? How can harnessing a brand's place in culture enrich the future of design?
Yeah, I think it's fuel. And, you know, I think the great thing about design and art is the dynamism, right? It is always changing. It is always pushing. It's a natural energy. And all of this work and the work of all the creatives out there, whether they're working with famous brands or just pioneering their own level of creativity, on a more limited basis, it's all part of this creative ecosystem that is incredible. And I think, you know, I think if you look at the level of design and Design Miami and Basic Space and the things that we're seeing here is showing the importance of design to the world and how that's just continuing to snowball. And so I think we're in a great period of time for the craft that we all love.
Agreed. Samuel, what are your thoughts about the way that these sort of marriages of commerce and culture can enrich the future of design?
Yeah, I was just like pondering on it. I think it's about almost interchanging the word brand with like media and communication, because it's almost about the reach is tied to the amount of chapters of communication that you have access to, and the cadence of each of those different chapters and how they're articulated. So, for example, it's not just about the one photo, it's about, the asset itself, then it's the photo, then it's the sound, and then it's the environment, and then it's the cadence of how those elements are put together. It's less about a brand, and it's more about the media and the world that you build around objects that you wish to communicate. And at times that might be transactional, and other times it's more so just an expression of the brand and of the world. So I think we're in this beautiful era where, for the most part, it's relatively easy to access several social media platforms. It's easy to go onto YouTube and learn 3D files. It's easy to do that alongside studying and to also practice, a series of skills which enable you to be equipped to speak through different media types and different mediums. I think a brand is no longer a monolith. A brand is a breathing and living village of sorts. And with that, you cut elements of it, you make extensions, you add new passageways and new pathways. And it's about understanding that brands aren't monoliths, they're living and breathing. And of course, we know brands are communities, but it's ensuring that when one does start a brand, if there are people maybe closer to my generation in here, and you're thinking about how you storytell, it's really making sure that you think about the ecosystem, you think about the world, you think about the different cadences of how you communicate, but you also, this is quite practical, this part, you think about the 3-year model, and how brands evolve. If I think about SRA or Cold War, for example, they both started closer to private practices. But my business partner and I, Yi, decided that at year 3 of SRA per se, we would move from service-based communications to direct-to-consumer communications. Now, without having a pragmatic plan of what happens at year 3, whether it's good or bad, we wouldn't be able to enter the next chapter. So being able to plan and almost basic modeling of your company or your practice is really what seems to separate those who are able to kind of stabilize and continue to grow their brands and communicate well, and maybe those who might need a little bit more guidance. Pragmatically planning is a huge part of that.
And Craig, what is your perspective on the potential of these sort of marriages of commerce and culture to push design forward?
Well, I think we have the perfect example here today. You've got this visionary, forward-thinking company, Kohler. They're making functional products, but they want to do it in a special way. They choose to work with Samuel. Samuel comes up with this brilliant design, but then they choose to present it in a global forum that celebrates design, Design Miami. And when you look at the installation, I mean, you don't think you're walking into like a shop that's selling fixtures for bathrooms or kitchens. You feel like you're looking at some fountains on a plaza. I mean, the installation itself is so magnificent. And so I think when people care and focus on those details and say, like, this can make a difference, it can go beyond just being functional, it can also enhance all of our lives, then that helps us bring it forward because it inspires other people to want to do that. And I think congratulations to you guys. You gave us a perfect example.
Thank you. I think we have a little more time left. Gentlemen, thank you so much. But if we'd like to open up to any questions from the audience, you're very welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for the brilliant presentation. My name is Judy Holm, and I'm the founder of Global Climate Design Awards. And thank you, Craig, for your partnership with Dacra and Design District. The question is regarding the future of design in terms of sustainable materials, sustainable methodologies, and circular economy. If you could please address that, I would appreciate. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we're all passionate about it, but central to our company's beliefs, our values, and our strategy going forward is sustainability. We believe it's a necessary responsibility of all actors in society, and certainly we as a global designer, manufacturer, it's critical. So in 2008, we made a commitment to be net zero by 2035. So way back when, before other companies had really addressed it. And we've been reducing our environmental footprint over 3% per annum since then. We still have a ways to go. But what it does is it pushes the creative process, because you want to do it without compromise. You want a successful business, but you want a healthy planet. And how do you create value for consumers in the middle there and achieve all of those objectives? So it's really driven us to find new materials, new processes, and we're always pioneering to really do better design for the environment, and that's been an incredible journey, and it continues to fuel us forward. And I would say more so in the product development and the process development going forward. We continue intense efforts, but we have some amazing new platforms, not just products, that we'll be launching in the years ahead that make radical reductions in the existing footprints of those products through reimagining the entire process and the materials that go into it. So to us, it's a way of working. It's a fundamental value, and we have to do it as a leader in our industry, and we hope that our efforts help inspire other manufacturers, because we think you can be a radical industrialist, an environmentalist, and a capitalist all at the same time.
Craig, do you want to take on the sustainability question?
Yeah, I mean, design in its essence is finding a better way to solve a problem. And I think that anybody that's working in design today has to think about sustainability. It was mentioned at the beginning, the design district is the first, this category 4 LEED certified gold neighborhood development in the world. Yesterday we announced with LVMH that all of our electric bills and all of the LVMH shops' electric bills are going to be energy neutral. We did that with FP&L. And I think that we all just need to do our part and continue to strive to find ways to decrease our footprint and save our planet.
And Samuel, how does sustainability and environmental awareness play into your approach as a designer?
Yeah, I think that there are multiple ways in which, if I think about fashion for a second, which is where I spent the last 8 years of my career primarily, over the past 3 to 4 years, we've started to move quite aggressively away from synthetics, for example, moving away from polymers, moving away from nylons, focusing on organic dyes coming in, really localizing production to support local trickle-down economies and families of ateliers. So I think there's two prospects of sustainability when the word comes up to me. One is, of course, the immediate impact. And as an individual who runs 2 relatively mid to small size independent companies, our view of sustainability is also linked to sustenance and thinking about how we are able to kind of leverage the almost the impact we have in the market from a commercial standpoint and the reach to actually regenerate local communities and economies. So for example, that means opening 1 to 2 small ateliers in London. It means choosing local print and production partners who may not necessarily be the quickest and at times might be a little bit more organic and closer to the earth in how they work, but it's more so about preserving skill sets. And I think working sustainably as a small business owner is about ensuring that you're protecting local economies and communities and sustaining the aptitude of your team and your peers and your employees. Because of course the two gentlemen here work on such a macro scale. On our side, it's more so safeguarding communities and the preserving of artistic skills and artisanal techniques where we can do.
That's a great question. Any others?
Hi, Samuel. We crossed paths at the Shanghai airport in July, and so that was a really great conversation. It's really great to see you again. Last time I talked about my design language of Go East with you, and so since today's panel's topic is about creating market through a cultural exchange, so I want to continue the same topic. So for the past months, as we all see the increased popularity of tourism in Asia or in Tokyo, and also the last Louis Vuitton show is held in Hong Kong. And I figure probably some of your work is also probably produced and manufactured in Asia or China, since just because how we value the craftsmanship. And what is your thought on this Asian presence in arts and design field in the next 3 years? And as a Gen Z, this Asian designer and artist, how do you think us could take advantage of this cultural trend? And at the end of my question, I want to let everybody here know there's no such thing as Far East. East is here now.
Firstly, well said. Well said. I think, when it comes to, first, it's good to see you again, because we had a great conversation in Shanghai airport when we were getting ready to launch the Hublot Tourbillon that we did actually launch in Shanghai. And I think the choice to ensure that we have really healthy creative relationships across the globe comes down to, I guess, a little bit of altruism, an optimistic view that the creative economy, we see each other as one and the same across. I'm as interested as, kids I grew up with in like the Midlands or in Brixton or in Northamptonshire as I am with, the next generation of talents in Guangzhou. And, I think there's another thing that you rightly highlighted is that there's no difference in terms of the level of skill that you find between one nation and another. It's more so the intimacy of the relationships that you have with the producers and with the manufacturers. And I enjoy my time going into rural Guangzhou, working with producers as much as I do as, working with the team over here in Kohler and Wisconsin and with, the local team that we've worked with to produce these benches domestically. So it's really about ensuring that we keep some type of creative dialogue between one another. And I've always personally been drawn to the arts because it's able to almost disassociate itself from historic disparities tied to region and tied to race and tied to location. And I think it's about preserving that way of thinking within the arts. And it is a brilliant question to put forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Any other questions? Oh, we have one in the side here.
Hey, hello? Okay. How similar is the design process when you sit down to design a collection for a cold wall versus when you sit down to design a furniture collection?
It's such a good question. I think that there's two parts to answer that. The first is the idea of multidisciplinary. I'm not sure that actually exists. I think it's more a reverence for specific disciplines. And as time goes on through maybe learning about each of those disciplines over the period of like 10 to 15 years, you understand the cadences and the intricacies of each of those. So when it comes to developing an apparel collection or a garment collection or runway collection, we have a completely separate space for that channel of thought to develop. It's a completely different way of articulating material. We're working with experts who are solely dedicated to fabrication and to construction. When it comes to any of the sculptural forms or the painting, such as the show recently with Friedman Bender and with White Cube this year, that is pretty much myself working intimately in a studio 150 miles outside of the city, spending weeks just with the material, questioning, trialing. And I think there's a respect for each of those disciplines, which means that you don't mix the source. You move into a completely separate state for each respectively.
Yeah. Okay. Any last questions? Oh.
Thank you guys all. That was an incredible panel. This is for Mr. Kohler. For the collaboration, is it the cultural impact more important for you, or is there a particular sales metric that dictates success for a collaboration?
So you said, is the cultural more important, or what was the second?
Or is there a specific like sales metric
Oh,
that dictates
yeah,
the
no,
success?
it's a great question. We really don't go into these with a sales objective in mind. I think we obviously believe there will be a favorable impact on the brand through the association, and there will be sales, but we don't go into it with a pure economic, financial objective in mind, because of part of who we are. It's part of creative exploration, but I think the great thing about them is that these journeys do take you into a place that can create significant economic opportunity, because you not only kind of pioneer these ideas, but then you find ways and ideas that can take you into more accessible commercial products that have high viability. And I think that's something that interests our collaborators as well, is how do they have a broader impact and enable their work to be in the hands of more people and create more impact around the world. So inevitably, it's where we go, but we don't start there with an exact plan in mind, because that would disrupt or bastardize the creative process itself. And I think the other thing is we don't enter these relationships to do a one-time drop and move on to somebody else. We look at these partners as long-term partners on a journey of exploration together, and we would like to see it last for decades.